I am excited or very interested to hear about your week. Did tell me a little bit about it. How it went in general for you?
Actually, from Tuesday to Thursday, well, actually till Friday, went great.
Oh, okay.
I was down 3 pounds. We went camping this weekend, and I ate some things I shouldn't have.
Okay.
I did exercise every day, but still struggling. But I did much better than I had been.
Good. When you said, okay, Tuesday to Friday went great. So great means that you ate the foods in the right kind of quantity, the right foods in the right kind of quantity. Is that what that looks like?
Yep, I pretty much stuck to my proteins, got my proteins in, I got my water in,
okay.
my vitamins, and like I say, we camped, and of course there were sweets.
Right. Did you go?
Unfortunately, I failed a little bit on Saturday, but back at it again today.
Right. So let's talk about that experience for just a couple of a minute or two here. Now, was this just you and your family? Were you meeting friends, other family? What was the experience?
Both, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we camped with friends, and then we had other friends that came up, and then my parents came up on Saturday.
Okay.
For the day.
And the question I have is, as you were preparing to bring food, I assume you obviously, since you're camping, you're bringing your food with you.
Correct.
Yeah. Were you strategizing about your approach to the weekend at all? And what I mean by that is, was it your plan to try to stick to your normal routine in terms of food? Were you going to give yourself, so your plan was to stick to your normal routine?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. I myself did not bring any sweets for that reason, but unfortunately when my parents came up, they brought sweets.
Okay. And so that was... Okay. Were they homemade sweets, which is always the most challenging?
No, he actually went to Kroger's and bought stuff from Kroger's.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get back to this, and we'll definitely come back to this with some questions and some stuff later on. What about your daily practices, the meditations?
Going okay. I struggle a little bit with the whole thinking of a bad day that I've had and exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Okay, so you have to tell the brain what you're trying to do. You have to show it. And so if you just started doing some visioning of your big want, the brain would go, okay, whatever. But because the thing that has to happen, the neurology that has to change within your brain is to quiet the patterns of how your current relationship with food and shift those patterns to new patterns. And that's why in these practices, we will generally start out by creating what your current state is, okay? And that's why we start out with fear, because we have to tell the brain, okay, I'm in fear, right? Which is, but I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change. And so from whatever fear-based emotion you're feeling, whatever it is, you then work through the meditation to switch over to the other, where your peace-based emotions come from. And it's literally from the back of your brain to the side of your head, the side of your brain, the right side. So you're actually accessing a different area of the brain and a different functional area within the brain. And then you once you get capable of switching from that fear-based brain to that peace-based brain, and you do it in responses to certain visual and certain kinds of experiences that you're creating in your head, which is going back into an experience where you weren't eating the food that you wanted to. The brain is looking at where you are and where you want to go. And if you don't attach the where you currently are to the where you want to go, it doesn't know when to take you to that new space. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So most of our, that's why affirmations actually don't change you. When you start it every day with an affirmation, a positive statement, it actually doesn't really create a whole lot of brain change because it's a statement of peace, but it's not related to any other aspect of your being. And so the brain doesn't really know how to put that in, how to make use of that. And so all work to change a current neurological pattern to a new neurological pattern in your emotional brain has to combine both where you are, your current state, and then the new state that you want to go to. And so that's why. And so you'll see this repeated. You'll see this pattern repeated in different ways. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions or?
No, I just gotta understand how to do it.
Okay. So is it understanding how to do it that the challenge is, or is actually doing it the way you think it should be done, achieving what you're trying to achieve when you do it? Those are two different questions, two different things.
Honestly, I'd say probably a little bit of both.
Okay. So let's kind of revisit this. So I guess explain to me what you do. Maybe that I'm a visual learner. Okay.
Unfortunately, so tell me what you do.
And so how I approach the practices, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So if I were getting ready to do my daily practice, I'd find someplace quiet and sit, and where I wasn't going to be disturbed, and I would sit down and close my eyes. And then I would start with a few of the three-sided breaths. And the reason that we start with that is it's an unnatural form of breathing. And that's not how we normally breathe, which means the brain notices. Okay, the brain's like, aha, that's weird. Why is she doing that? And so what that does is it gets your brain's attention. It doesn't get what you then, so that the follow-up to that, what you do next, doesn't get lost in all the stuff that's firing in your brain, right? And so you get its attention by doing something out of the norm. And so that's the three-sided breath. And then you do that a few times just to make sure that the brain is aware. And then of course the guided meditation asks you to go into a feeling a day, an experience where you weren't able to follow your food plan. You weren't able to you weren't able to make the choices that are aligned with what you really want. And if you remember, the focus is to try to feel it. And so let me give you a little bit more information about that. We kind of smart, thoughtful individuals think that we can think our way through solving our emotional or changing our emotional being or solving our emotional problems, whatever that is. And we'll go into it in today's lesson a little bit. So those are two very different parts of your brain. Your emotional brain is in your primal, your old mammalian brain, and it's in the very back, and the part that creates fear is in the very back of your head, almost at the base of the skull in the back, right at the top of your spinal cord. Very, very primal part of the brain. Okay, your feel-good peace brain is on the right side. It's called the nucleus accumbens. The fear base is called the amygdala. You don't have to remember that, but they have different names. Is on the right side, towards the middle of your head, And your thinking brain is behind your forehead, okay? And that's your prefrontal cortex. So what you want to do then is, and the thing about it is you have to access that part of the brain. So to tell the brain that you're moving from fear to peace in these circumstances, you have to get into that fear so the brain knows what you're talking about. Again, it's sending the message to the brain. This is my current state. You know this. Okay, here I am, and I'm going to there. Here I am, and I'm going to there. And that's why you have to create the feeling of the fear in your body. It's hard to do when you first start. But the more you practice, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And of course, it's easier to create the fear than it is to create the peace, because your brain is more used to being in the fear than it is in being in the peace, particularly when it comes to food. And so what I would do is I would do my 3-sided breaths for a couple of times. I think it's 3, maybe 4 times. And so my brain is going, what's she up to? Right. And then I start to visualize. I just create the sense that I'm in this space of where I've just eaten a bag of Oreo cookies and my clothes are too tight. And gosh darn it, another time I didn't stick to my plan. And I've got an event coming up and I'm totally stressed and I really wanted to fit into this other, dress for this event. And so you don't think about it, but you try to imagine that you're in that space. And this is where it gets challenging to people. Kind of just pretend like you're creating an image in your brain of just being in that space of when I ate that whole bag of Oreo cookies, and try to feel what it felt like. Okay, what did it feel like in the moment of eating it? It probably felt pretty good. You're like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. But then what did it feel like when you were done? Okay, after you'd eaten it? Maybe you felt sick to your stomach. Maybe you felt just disgusted and, whatever it is. And try to create that feeling. And then you stay in that feeling for a little bit and you're breathing normally at this point. And then the next step in the process is to now move to your state of peace, where you are creating in your mind the experience of living your big want. It's like if I could, right? The if I could. And remind me again what your if I could is. I don't have it written down here. Do you remember?
To be back down into my size 16 pace.
Right.
And to have the feeling of feeling thinner when my husband hugs me.
That's right. Okay. And so you're imagining, like, close your eyes and just imagine, I'm in these pants. And you put them on and you look in the mirror and just try to create that experience. And imagine your husband with his arms around you in the way that you want it to be. And maybe he can pick you up and, all this kind of stuff. And just the work the challenge is to learn how to access that part of your brain. And in the beginning, we're going to be continuing to do things like this over the next weeks. And so you will get better at it. And so here's the thing, and I think I said this last time, but I want to re-emphasize it. Your ability to get into that space is your own ability. I mean, it takes some people a lot longer than it takes others. We don't know why, we don't know why. And all you can do is just, when I say try, is just follow the guided meditation and just scan your body and see if you can feel the tightness in your chest, maybe the cravings, telling you to eat something. What does that feel like? In your chest, in your throat, in your face, in your head, in your gut, okay? And so that when you can feel it in your body, you're accessing that part of the brain. Now, one of the things that you can do to help yourself, and you're going to be doing that this week, is when when your brain is telling you, I need food, I want food, I need food, it's time to eat, whatever the message is, it's like sending you to the refrigerator. And we'll talk more, we're going to ask you just to stop, okay? Stop before you do anything and assess, okay, does this feel like I have this empty growling stomach and I haven't eaten for 6 hours and it's time for some nutrition, okay? You know how that feels like. And with surgery, it takes a while to get that back. Versus I'm having a craving. It's my mental hunger. It's this, I need relief. I'm feeling a sense of unease. It can be all kinds of things. And that, of course, is mental hunger, emotional hunger, cravings. And that's when we are eating to get some relief from whatever it is we're feeling. And we don't question, we don't evaluate what we're feeling. We don't criticize, we don't have expectations. if it bubbles up, it's sending you a message. It may be a pattern that has been around since the time you were a small child that was actually created, in a sense, by your parents or your nurturers early in your life, if they were your parents or grandparents or whatever they are. Sounds like they're your parents. And so my suggestion on the meditation is, let me ask you first, did my description help you in any way? I don't mean did it help you achieve it, but do you have a little bit more sense of what you're trying to do?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
But honestly, for me, as far as my cravings or if I eat something bad, I don't feel it in my body. I just do it. It's the thing for me that the hardest for me is going to be feeling it in my chest or in my hands or, I don't feel that. I just do it.
You just do it. And when you describe that to me, and let me ask you a couple questions first. And so you are watching TV or you're doing something else, whatever it is, you're involved in some kind of activity. And what is a series of little events that happens that takes you from, I don't know, looking through a magazine, for example, to getting up and going to get something to eat, a non-planned event, something that you didn't think through. So tell me, you're looking at your magazine and to the best of your ability, describe the next steps.
For me, it's at work.
Okay.
I'm in accounting, so I work on a computer all day long.
Okay.
And I'm busy, and then all of a sudden the thought of, I want something to eat. And I do it. Not always, but and it's like I say, for me, if I have it there, I'm more apt to eat it.
Okay. And do you have it there, or do you go to a vending machine or refrigerator in the office, or how do you get the food?
I usually have it in my drawer, or I do have things. And it's not always junk. It's like I have cheese sticks, and I have Sargentos, or I'll have lunch meat or something in the fridge.
And so let's see.
So it's like the thought, it's just I'm working, and then all of a sudden, I want something to eat. And sometimes I fight it off. I try to fight it off, and sometimes that devil on my shoulder just wins, and I end up eating.
Okay, and so you had your surgery, it was 2 years ago in March, right?
Correct.
Okay, and do you actually get feelings of hunger now, where your stomach is growling?
No, I don't get to that. Occasionally, if I'm outside working all day long, it's like, wow, I'm starving. I need something to eat. And I seriously don't hardly ever feel hungry. And I just eat to eat.
Okay, and when you do feel hungry, it's usually associated with a long period of time of not eating, longer than normal, correct. Right? Okay, so your stomach, your gut is empty. Okay.
Correct.
And do you not feel the hunger the rest of the time because you eat frequently enough that it actually doesn't get to that stage?
Yes.
Okay. And so, and what's your meal situation like? And what do I mean by that? Are you a grazer? Do you eat 3 meals a day? Do you eat 3 meals with some snacks in between? And
yeah, 3 meals basic. Well, like for breakfast. Well, I've been having a protein shake anywhere between 8 and 10 in the morning, and the opposite, I'll have 2 chips and sausages in the morning, either at 8 or 10, and the opposite will be my protein shake.
Okay.
And then I eat lunch. Mm-hmm. Like today I had a chicken taco with a cucumber, and I had a little bit of watermelon.
Okay.
And I don't know what I'm having for dinner yet.
But you haven't had any snacks this afternoon?
No.
And do you have any hunger? Just do me a quick assessment of your gut. Do you feel full? Do you feel bloated? Do you feel fine? Do you feel empty?
I feel fine. I feel fine, but the craving is always there.
The craving.
It's like I seriously think of food.
All the time?
All the time.
Okay. And describe for me what that craving, so, kind of scan your body and describe for me in the best you can, just whatever you can. What do you feel when you feel the craving? And let's start with where in the body does if you actually stepped and like thought about where is this craving from? What part of your body is it impacting? Do you have a sense of that?
I would say my brain.
Your head, then, in your head.
Yep, my head. Yep.
Can you?
That's where it's telling me that you want something to eat.
So, do you feel a different sensation in your head? Like, does there a shift from your normal feeling of your head to something else when the craving gets strong? Is it like
almost not anxiety, but
discomfort?
Discomfort, the need to have to do it.
Yeah. Okay, and that's in your head. All right.
Not satisfied until I do it.
That's a craving. That's a craving, and or mental hunger, or basically your brain, your dopamine system, and your brain saying, "I want you to give me dopamine. I want you to give me dopamine." But anyway, okay. So you know what that. So you have a sense of what that feeling in your head feels like when you're having a craving. And you recognize, sounds like you recognize that it's not the same thing as a growling stomach, right?
No,
right,
no, not
right.
at all.
Okay. And so the thing that we want you to try for you to recreate, which is that feeling in your head, kind of go to the memory of that feeling. Focus on the memory of it. You may not start by just, this morning or now, maybe you're having cravings right now, but, we're not going to stop and have you. Well, are you having cravings right now? That's a good, interesting question. So.
I mean, when I came in the house, I got these peanut butter crackers. I'm like, man, I should have some of those, but I didn't.
But you didn't. Okay. And tell me right now the state of the feeling in your head. Mild, medium, terrible?
To want to do it?
To want to do it, yeah. Well, how the mental hunger, the craving, the strength of the craving?
It's between medium and terrible.
Between medium and terrible, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say you just do it, let's try to relate that to the feeling in your head, okay? And so what do I mean by that? So, and this is something you're going to do this week, and so you'll probably have some more information on this at the end for our call next week.
Okay.
Let's see, what was my question? So, because what we're trying to do is to get you aware of those feelings that are associated with the knee-jerk reaction of eating, okay? Now, if you were working at your desk, if you were at work, okay, and you've been working for, straight, I don't know, for a couple hours, maybe an hour, whatever, and you put you look up from your screen, whatever you're doing, you put your pencil paper down or whatever it is, and you feel, and what pops into your brain is, I want something to eat, okay? Is that how it goes, kind of?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Are you aware of this feeling in your head at that point? Or you were just, do you have any awareness that there's this discomfort that you really want to get rid of? Or is it just, it's in your head that you want something to eat, so you get up?
Yeah, I would say it's just in my head that I want it.
Okay.
I don't have to, I don't see, if I don't do it, I guess you could say it's discomfort because I have, I wouldn't say it's anxiety, but I just have the urges to do it.
The urges, right.
The need to do it.
Right, the need. It's like an itch, right? And you got to scratch it.
Right, yep.
Right? It's like an itch, yep. But, but just as you scratch an itch, guess what happens? It itches more. It's a very,
right.
Yeah. So it's actually a very appropriate scratch the itch, right? So this week, we're going to move on from this because I think what we're going to do this upcoming week may help you. Hopefully it will help you. What we're really, whatever is driving you to get up and eat, when you're not hungry. You're not getting hunger pains, right? It's a different kind of hunger, right? It's an emotional hunger, a mental hunger, whatever it is.
Yep.
Whatever that is driving you is there, okay? Because if you're around people at all who don't use food to feel better, they use something else to feel better. They will go all morning. They'll eat breakfast, and they usually eat. That they oftentimes will not eat again till lunch. But even if they have a little snack, it's not. It's actually probably because they need some nutrition, but it's not a compulsion in the sense that if they don't do it, it just goes away. It doesn't create and build, and that's the difference. I have on my husband's side of the family, they don't have the same kind of food issue, and I watch my two nieces. I've watched them for a long time. They were little girls.